Hello everyone, and welcome to my studio. I'm Trish Crosby, and today I will be starting and reviewing a new journal that I just got from Amazon. This journal is 100% cotton watercolor paper. It's 300 GSM and 140 pound weight, and it comes with 30 sheets. And I hope you can see the texture on this paper. So today I'll be reviewing this new journal and testing it out, doing this blue wildflower painting. So hang out with me and let's have some fun. So as I get started on this painting, if you like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that YouTube can push my content to new people. I'm starting out using lemon yellow to fill in everywhere except for the flowers themselves. The reason why I'm using lemon yellow is because the greens of this painting will have a base color of yellow. I don't want yellow in the flowers because the flowers will be blue, and if I had yellow in them it would turn them green. So when you're trying to figure out what color to start with, remember when you put colors over top of your colors, they will change. So if you have yellow and you add blue, you will get green. I'm not sure that you can tell, but I also keep a small piece of paper towel in my hand to blot up anywhere where I don't want color. It just makes it easier. I typically always have a piece of paper towel in my left hand because I'm right-handed. I'm just adding in some yellow green right now to add in. I'm layering colors right now. The paper is wet, and so the colors really flow really easily. So I'm just adding in some background color. I've sped up this part of the video to about 4 times the normal rate because it gets to be a little boring if you're watching this and you're watching me add colors. So hopefully this kind of breaks up the monotony. So I just mixed up probably a blue or purple using blue and magenta. I believe I use ultramarine and magenta. This color palette that I have is Match Japanese Professional Watercolors. It comes with 12 colors, so I have to mix up my purples because it doesn't come with a purple. If you are interested in these watercolor paints, I do have my Amazon affiliate marketing links in the description box below. I will also have links for this watercolor journal. As you can tell, this paper is very wet at this point, so the colors are just kind of bleeding out, which is what I want. I want the background to be quite blurry. And as the paper dries, I'll be able to put in a lot more detail and get crisper lines. But right now I just want everything to kind of flow together because I'm just adding in all of the different colors and the stems and trying to get some depth down in the bottom of the painting. Right now I'm trying to define the edges of these petals. Later on I will come back in and I will clean up these edges. And so far in this painting, this paper is performing really well. I was quite shocked because this watercolor journal was only I think it was $16. It's really inexpensive. And the size of it being 8.3 by 5 by 8 is fairly large for a journal, and having 30 sheets of 100% cotton watercolor paper and being roughly about $16, I found that to be really well priced. And for this paper to perform the way that it is, I was really pleased with it. One of my favorite things about doing flower paintings is doing these little squiggly things. You know, when you're doing stems and leaves and stuff, I just kind of let the paintbrush do its own thing. Now I am lifting out some little spots because I want to put in some little buds, and I also want some lighter areas in these stems, so I'm lifting it out. And as you can see, this paper is performing really well. It is allowing me to lift this color out. I mean, without any problems whatsoever. I hope you can see that the paper is drying quite a bit, that's one of the great things about watercolor. You get a little bit more control when the paper starts to dry. I'm adding in some burnt sienna right here to add in these little buds. I put lemon yellow at the bottom, and I'm kind of blending out the lemon yellow and the burnt sienna to make these little flower buds. I like the way the burnt sienna contrasts with that lemon yellow. Lemon yellow is very bright. It's very iridescent, and that's one of the things that I love about it. Now that the paper is quite dry, I'm able to get some crisper lines. I believe here I'm mixing in yellow, green, and ultramarine to deepen up the color. I'm trying to get some darker shades down in the bottom to add some contrast between these leaves. So hopefully some of my subscribers will remember in one of my videos I was talking about planting some wildflower seeds, and I actually went out and planted 2 beds of wildflower seeds, and I have little babies out in my yard, and I go out every day and I water them, and I can't wait for them to come up. I'm so super excited. So when all that happens, I will be sharing those beautiful flowers with you, and hopefully doing some paintings with them. I also just purchased an amazing little crystal bud vase, and I want to share that with all of you too in a future video. So right now I'm just adding in these little cool little squigglies. At least that's what I call them. It's one of the fun parts of the painting. So now that I have most of the leaves and the stems put in the way I want, I need to go in and clean up some of these edges. I don't want the hard lines around these petals. I want it to look like it's blurred. So I'm softening up these edges by adding some water and just kind of scrubbing out the edges and then lifting it with a paper towel. This just, I don't want the harsh lines. So as you can see, it's just kind of softening the edges. And again, this paper is taking this scrubbing, and as you can see, it's lifting really well. This paper reminds me of Arches. Arches is one of my favorite watercolor papers, and this paper is performing a lot like Arches. Okay, so now that we have all the edges softened up, I'm going to start adding in the blue flowers. I've mixed up some ultramarine blue, and for the most part, these flowers are just ultramarine blue. And I'm adding in the color on the edges of the petal, and then I'm blending it in towards the center. I want the centers of the flowers to be white. I'm going to have to allow these flowers to dry completely before I put in the yellow centers, because like I said earlier, if I was to make this whole flower blue and then add lemon yellow on top of it, I would have green centers and not yellow. So I'm just blending this ultramarine blue towards the center and allowing the center of the flower to remain white. And then I'm going to let the flowers completely dry, and I will add in the lemon yellow centers later on. If you keep your petals fairly wet, you can blend pretty easily towards the center. But if you need to, you can lift out whenever you need. So where is everyone from? I live in Georgia, near Savannah, which Savannah, if you've ever been here, you know Savannah is a beautiful city. This time of year, because it's spring, the azalea bushes are blooming, so there's color everywhere, and Savannah is a really fun city. Right now, the temperatures typically are about in the low 70s during the day, and if you know anything about the South, it gets really hot here. So this time of year is really beautiful. The birds are singing, everything's blooming, and the temperatures are amazing. If you get a chance to visit Savannah, you won't be disappointed. You should check out River Street and the squares. There's so many historical places, and the architecture is amazing. We also have an art school here, SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design. And we have a lot of festivals on River Street, food festivals, art festivals. There's galleries. There's so many wonderful restaurants. There's so many things to do here in Savannah. But don't come in the summertime. It is way too hot. As most watercolor artists know, there's a point in every painting that is called the ugly stage, especially in watercolor painting. I'm sure it is the same for pretty much every other medium too. The ugly stage is typically when you start putting in, all of the elements, but you haven't really gotten into any of the details yet. So at this point in this painting, that's where we are. This is considered the ugly stage. This is the stage where you have to push past what's going on the paper. It's hard to be patient and not allow yourself to get ahead of yourself. And that's one of the things that watercolor has taught me is I needed to learn a lot of patience. So, because, when you get to the ugly stage, you look at your painting and you're like, ugh. And sometimes it's really bad, where you just want to quit. But I promise you that if you stick with it and you just push through the ugly stage, you will get to the point where you are finally ready to put in some details. And as you start putting in the details, things will start to come together. So now that I've got all the petals done and I'm ready to push past the ugly stage and start getting in some of these details, I'm adding in the lemon yellow centers, testing and making sure that everything's dry before I do it. And then I'm going to add in some burnt sienna, little stamens in the center of the flowers. This burnt sienna just gives it kind of a punch of color up against that lemon yellow. I'm also going to add a small dot of burnt umber down in the bottom. It's a minuscule little dot. And all it does is just give it a little bit more contrast down in the bottom of where those stamens are. And now I'm adding in these little veins on the petals, which is going to just bring these flowers to life. This to me is the exciting part of the painting, where everything starts to come together and things kind of liven up. One of the other things that I had to learn about painting was to not be so invested in the end result. When I finally started telling myself that it was going to turn out or it wasn't, and just kind of letting go of my expectations, things started working out better for me. I tend to be a little bit too rigid and perfectionistic, and so when I paint, I just have to let go and just let things be. So I've mixed up a really deep purple for darkening up and sharpening up these stems. You could use a Payne's Gray. I actually have a Payne's Gray, a professional Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray in this palette that I've added. I love Winsor & Newton Payne's Gray because it's more on the blue side. There's a lot of different shades of Payne's Gray out there, and I've found that Winsor & Newton's, I like theirs the best. So I'm using this deep purple to sharpen up these stems and to deepen up the color of these stems and leaves to give me a little bit more contrast down in the bottom of this painting. Purple is a good contrast, and it works because of the purple that's in the flowers. I'm just layering in these darker leaves. And my little squigglies. So I'm just adding in some extra little leaves and some squigglies and some extra lines to kind of give a little bit more definition down here at the bottom. And a lot of contrast. Contrast is very important in paintings. I don't know about all of you, but it took me a long time to get used to the painting style in watercolor where you do light to dark. I was used to doing dark to light, and it was very hard for me to transition, but I finally figured it out after a lot of ugly paintings. So I'm adding in some burnt sienna to give that punch of color on those little buds. And now I'm adding in that lemon yellow again, that just a burst of color. If you want to lighten things up and just kind of bring in a luminescence, that lemon yellow is just wonderful for that. So that'll do it for this painting today. This little watercolor journal has performed fabulously, and there will be a link in the description box for it. As you can see, the washi tape comes off very cleanly, and I hope you guys enjoyed this painting. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.